I'm sure my screen is visible to you. We are talking about the multiple access protocols in the data link layer of computer networks, right? Earlier, we have spoken about one important uh, class of access protocol, that is time division multiplexing, frequency division multiplexing, code division multiplexing protocols, right? So that is a set of a class of protocols, and we have got two more classes of such protocols. They are random access protocol and taking turns protocol, right? So we are going to learn them in an abstract way as per your teaching plan and also your curriculum content. We'll see how far we can go in that. All right, what happens in random access protocol, right? So in the earlier class of protocol, we found that there was a disadvantage which said every of the node or every of the station has got only a fraction of bandwidth for them for communication, right? If there are n number of nodes to communicate, and if the bandwidth is capital R, every of the node was getting only R by n max at any time, right? Even if it is frequency division multiplexing or time division multiplexing, that was the drawback. How can we work on that? How can we rectify that? Because if only one station is having the data to transmit, when others are not having any data to transmit, we want the whole of the bandwidth to be placed by that node. If you remember it correctly, that's the ideal access protocol, right? Multiple access protocol. So, but your earlier set of protocols was not very much favor of that ideal condition. And then that's the reason we have got another class of protocol called random access protocol. What's happening here? A transmitting node always transmits at the full rate of the channel or bits per second. Very, 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 very optimistic one. Interesting one, right? Point is very simple. Do you have a data to transmit? Send it. Very, very optimistic, right? When there is a collision, though you are very optimistic, there is a chance that there will be collision, right? What is the collision? We know about that. When the data from one station collides with data from another station, we call it as collision, which means you are sending, station A is sending some set of information which are called bits, right? Could be voltage in the wired media, maybe plus 5 voltage for 1 and 0 for 0 voltage for 0. And other station also does the same thing. When these two signals collide each other, now the voltage level goes up. It's not 5 anymore, it's going to be 7 or 8 or 10. In that, this cannot be recovered from such collision. The data cannot be recovered, cannot be interpreted by both the network interface card on both the sides. We call it as collision. So when two stations simultaneously send data through a broadcast medium, then there is a collision. Okay, so what happens when there is a collision? Each node involved in the collision repeatedly retransmits. Was there a collision? Yes, just retransmit it. Just transmit it once again. Okay, its frame until its frame gets through without a collision. It is trying your best. Try multiple times. Just send it. If there is a collision, retransmit. If there is a collision, retransmit. All right, but it is not necessary that you have to retransmit immediately. Okay, I sense the collision. Let me send it again. Not like that. But you normally, when you face there is a collision, you wait for some time, okay, which is called as random delay. There is no a hard and fast rule that you must wait for this much amount of time. You should wait for a random amount of time before retransmitting a frame. Now, why should we go for a random delay? Why can't it be a fixed delay, maybe 5 seconds or 25 milliseconds and so on? The reason behind that is very simple. Suppose there are two nodes, both of them understand there is a collision, both of them have to wait for certain amount of time before they go for transmission. If we permit both of them to wait for say 5 seconds, then after 5 seconds both the nodes are going to send the data. Again there will be a collision. Another 5 seconds, same story, right? So result will be same. That's the reason the nodes are set such a way that they wait for a random amount of time. Okay, he waits for 5 seconds. Okay, the other person may be waiting for 22 seconds, just something like that, right? So they wait for random amount of time. So there is a chance that the collision will not happen. There is a probability that there will not be collision. This is what happening in random access protocol. There are two versions we are going to learn. Though there are umpty number of random access protocols available in the literature, we are going to talk about two. One is slotted Aloha. Okay, Aloha is coming next. That's the original Aloha protocol. But let's talk about slotted Aloha, then we'll go for the Aloha protocol. So what happens in the Aloha protocol? There are some assumptions made. Okay, the assumptions are valid. Many a times the assumptions are valid. Sometimes it becomes invalid as well. Okay, what are the assumptions? First one, I'm reading from the screen. Now, all the frames consist of exactly L bits. Okay, that is possible because in data link layer, when you talk about the Ethernet protocol has the Ethernet technology has got the frame size as 1500 bytes. Okay, so there is a possibility that all the frames will contain exactly L bits. Point number one. Second one, time is divided into slots of L by R seconds. Okay, that's okay. That is also possible, right? So based on the size of the bit, size of the data, or size of the frame, time is divided into slots. Why? So that at the start of frame, if you send a packet, you'll be able to complete transmission at the end of the frame. For instance, if you have got 10 bits to send, then the time frame will be allotted in such a way that you'll be able to send 10 bits of data at least in that frame. Okay, that's how the frames are divided so that it will not overrun. Third one, nodes are sending their frames at the beginning of the slots only. The main reason is that the frame size are defined in such a way that, I'm sorry, the time slot is given such a way that a single frame fits in, right? So only if you start sending your frame at the start, before you get the slot is getting over, you'll be having your data completing. Okay, you'll be able to complete your transmission. Okay, so that is what your transmission of frame. Okay, other reason is that if you permit to send the data at any time, then there will be high collision, right? So that is the idea. The fourth one is little bit impractical, though it is near practical. The nodes are synchronized so that each node knows when the slots begin. Okay, so the timing synchronization is essential here, where every nodes in the broadcast medium know when exactly the slot starts and also it ends. Right. The final one, if two or more frames collide in a slot, then all the nodes detect the collision even before the slot ends. That's again assumption should be possible because when you talk about the transmission delay and propagation speed, normally the propagation is happening at the speed of the light. Okay, so the fifth assumption is nearly possible to happen. What's the logic? When two people are, because everyone is permitted to send the frame at the start of the slot. So there is a possibility that more than one person will be able to send the frame data at the start of the slot. Then there will be collision. But the collision will be known to everyone before the frame ends. So that whatever the communication, whatever the transmission that happens can be stopped and the fresh frame can be started at the start of next frame. Okay, so these are the assumptions in this slotted Aloha. Then let's see how it happens. Very simple, sir. Aloha is very simple, let me tell you. I read the first line so that I can explain. When the node has a fresh frame to send, what is that? You have got a sending node has got data from the network layer. Okay, from the network layer you got the data. Now the data is ready at the data link layer. The data is ready so that it can be transmitted. Okay, when the node has a fresh frame, it has received a fresh data to send. What does it do? It waits until the beginning of this start of the slot. All right, because everyone is permitted to send their frame only at the start of the slot. All right, so it is waiting when the slots begins. Now the question is, how can the device know? Because the assumption, one of the assumption in the previous slide, it says preferably where is it, the fourth one, every nodes know the start of frames when the slot begins. Okay, so it is waiting for the slot to begin and then it's sent. Okay, so the frame is sent in that slot. If there is no collision, it is successful. All right, if there is a collision, okay, what happens? the node retransmits its frame in each subsequent slot with probability p. Okay, so there is a word called a probability. The probability value ranges from 0 to 1. Logic is very simple. Okay, it is like tossing a coin, right? So there is a collision. You have sent a frame at the start of the slot. There is a collision because somebody else also has parallelly sent it. Now you are in trouble that you are not able to complete. It is not successful. Will you be able to send in the start of the next slot? You maybe, you may not be. What is that? You just toss a coin. If it permits you to send, you go for it. Otherwise you wait for the next slot to begin. All right, so it has its own probability. So every of the node calculates like this. Okay, the tossing the coin is just an illustration, but it tries to see whether it can send it in that slot, finds the probability, right? If it is able to send, it will send. If it is complete without any collision, success. Otherwise, go back and wait for the next slot. If you have got adequate probability to send it. Otherwise, wait for the next slot. Okay, what are the advantages here in this slotted algorithm, right? So as I mentioned at the start of the session, it allows a node to transmit continuously at the full rate R when that node is the only active node. Okay, if you look at the first time division multiplexing and frequency division multiplexing, where every of the nodes were given only a fraction of the bandwidth, right? But the Aloha has got the advantage that you can use the whole of the bandwidth. Okay, it is highly decentralized. Okay, there is no one sitting in the middle and says, okay, you go now, you can send it now. No, there is no such polling. There is no such polar or centralized administrator who is taking care of this transmission. Okay, it is highly decentralized. The third one is it is extremely simple protocol because understanding is very simple. These are the points which supports our ideal multiple access protocol, right? It is a very simple protocol to implement. What is that? Sensing, check the slot. Is there space? You send it. If there is a collision, wait for some probability to happen. Wait for some 2, 3 slots, and then you send it, and so on, right? So it's very simple to implement. So these are the advantages. Let's have a discussion here. Is it very comfortable? Is it very good protocol? Let's have a quick discussion. On the screen, you can see a samples slotted Aloha transmission. Okay, you have got 3 nodes, node 1, 2, and 3. The data packets or the frames of node 1 is given in light blue, whereas node 3 is given probably in sky blue color, and node 2 is slightly somewhere between these two extremes, right? That's the color coding it's used. All right. Now, if you look at the first slot, this is one slot. Okay, all the C, E, C, S, don't worry now. These all are the slots. Okay, and you have got the frames. If you look at the first slot, node 1, 2, and 3, all these 3 nodes have sent their frames. There is a collision, right? That's why it is called as collision slot, only for our understanding. Okay, and then if you look at the second one, there is nothing. Neither none of these nodes, node 1 or 2 or 3 have sent the data frames. So it is really wasted, I would say. Okay, it's an empty slot. Look at this C, the third slot, again there is a collision. Fourth slot, only node 2 has sent the frame. So this is a successful slot. Okay. Fifth again becomes empty. Sixth, there is a collision. Second is empty. Eighth is successful. Ninth is successful, and so on. If you look at this, whatever is given as successful is the useful slot. Empty slot is useless. It is really wasting the bandwidth. Collision slot is also useless because the data or the whatever is exchanged at that time has collided, so you cannot use that slot for anything useful, right? So now what happens, the success slot only is useful. That gives a little bit difficulty for this slotted Aloha to sustain, right? So you can understand from whatever is explained. All right, then comes the Aloha, which is actually the pure Aloha. Let me tell you, the only difference is there is no slot. All the frame in the entire. Okay. If a transmitted frame experiences collision, same story. The node will then immediately retransmit the frame with the probability B, same like your slotted aloha. Otherwise, okay, there is no collision. The node waits for a frame transmission time. After this wait, it transmits the frame with probability P or waits for another frame time with probability 1 minus P. Alright. So all the second and third points are same like your slotted aloha. Only logic is you need not wait for start of the slot in your aloha. All right. So, what is actually expected in the case of Aloha? You have got the first point here. It says when a frame first arrives, the node immediately transmits. There is a small clutch. Okay, so you have a problem there. That what will happen? There is a chance that there will be always collision because you don't have any control. Sir, have you got the data? Send it. There is something fishy. So what is expected here is that Aloha is a little bit greedy, I would say, though it is not greedy algorithm, but I would say it is a little bit greedy because when you got the frame, you have to send it. It says listen before speak. Okay, you have to listen before you speak. As soon as you got the data, are you going to send? Don't do that. All right. So look at that. You have got a packet which is already in the transmission. Okay, then at time t0, don't worry that this is a frame, this is a slot, just a time mentioned. Okay, suddenly the another station has got a frame which is sent. Now there is a collision, there is a overlap, there is a collision, right? So it is not a good idea. So don't just send it, just wait for what others are speaking, and then you can start speaking. Okay, listen before speaking. It's a good habit, not only in computer networking but also in the human analogy as well. Okay, so the concept of listen before speaking is mentioned as carrier sensing in computer networks. Okay, what is the carrier? Your link or the cable or wired or wireless medium, the medium. Okay, sense the carrier. Okay, check the carrier whether there is any data transmission is happening. That is your networking jargon, right? What is the meaning of sensing? Please recall, if it is a wired medium, there is always going to be voltage level. Okay, once you sense the carrier, if you feel that there is a voltage happening, you should understand that some transmission is happening in that link. Okay, that is called sensing the carrier. Okay, the second point is again interesting. If someone else is speaking, stop. Otherwise, if someone else begins talking at the same time, you better stop talking. Okay. When you sense the carrier or when you're talking to someone, maybe in a group discussion, somebody else has already started talking. It's wait. You just wait. Let them finish it. All right. Otherwise, if you okay, you know that he's talking, you are also talking. Then none of the others can listen. Right. So what's this? Listen before speaking. Okay. Second one, when you are when you about to start, when you start talking, if somebody else will start talking, then you better you wait, you stop the talking. Okay. If you look at the um, computer networking, okay, you are checking the carrier. If there is a voltage level fluctuation, voltage level difference, you are sensing the carrier, then what are you going to do? You better cease your transmission, stop sending the packets. Okay, refrain from sending the packet or terminate your transmission. Okay, that's what happening in the case. That is what expected if you have the aloha to work. Okay, so whether it is exactly happening in the aloha, no, we have got something called carrier sense multiple access. That's the third one. Okay, you got aloha, you got slotted aloha, then now you have got carrier sense multiple access. Okay, so I have got a small picture on screen. Let me explain to you. There are four stations. Okay, station A, B, C, and D. All right, and the y-axis progresses with the time t0, maybe t1, then t2, t3, t4, t5. There is no fixed slot. Please remember, the different timing are given by different indices, t1 or t2, t3, tn, and so on. Okay, the time progresses this way, and these are all the four different nodes. And node D is the farthest node to A. Okay, the distance between node A to D is higher than the distance between A to C and A to B. Similarly, B is having A and B at the equal distance, but D is a little bit far. Similarly, the other nodes. Now you understand the spaces, okay? The spatial difference among the four nodes. That's how they are placed in a broadcast medium, okay? In a maybe a bus topology, and all these four devices are attached to that. That's what happened. Okay. Now what next? Okay. Now you could see at time t0. Okay, there is a time at time t0. Node B has started its transmission. Okay. So node B has started its transmission, and the data goes in the broadcast channel. Please remember about the internet delay or end-to-end delay. Though the propagation is at the speed of the light, that also involved in the fraction of delay, right? So it started, the node B has started sending the data. So it goes to node C at this time. It's a broadcast medium. All right. If you are not able to visualize, you can just put yourself in that place. You started talking, it goes every direction. There is a person near to you. There is a person probably standing some 50 meters away from you. The person who is close to you will listen to you first, and the person who is far from you will listen next. Okay, this is a broadcast medium, very similar to at what time you are listening. You are hearing this thunder sound. Okay, when there is a lightning and thunder, if it happens somewhere else, it will take 2-3 seconds for you to receive and understand. The people who are in the locality will hear the noise immediately. Same logic. This is a broadcast medium, and whatever is sent started traveling over the cable or wired or wireless medium. Let me not bother about that. It goes. Okay, so it goes, and it reaches node C and A probably at this time. Okay, maybe at this time, right? And it will reach node D only by this time. Okay, forget about whatever is sent by T1. Don't worry about that. Now you bother only about uh, okay, you bother only about what happens in the dark blue color. Okay, the data started transmitting. So it reaches C at this time, roughly. It reaches D at this time, roughly, maybe T4 or T5 some other time, and reaches A by this time. And fortunately here, node A and C had no data, no frame to send. Okay, and after some time, after node B has sent the data, after certain time, maybe at time t1, at time t1, what is happening? Node D has a frame to send. We have aloha, a small variation in aloha, right? Yes, node G1 has a data to send. So what happens at this time? You see, it senses the carrier. Okay, we are talking about carrier sense multiple access. That's the improvement from your aloha protocol. Okay, at time T1, node D senses the carrier. It finds there is no data transmission. Okay, this is crucial. Okay, node T0 has started sending the data because there was no transmission happening. He was the only person, so it started sending continuously. It started sending, it has spread across. And at T1, node D senses the carrier. It finds no data transmission happening, hence it started its transmission. Okay, it senses the carrier, no transmission, starts sending. Simple logic. Okay, but you know what happens? There is a collision at time, probably maybe T2, let's say T2. But this collision is reaching D at this time, maybe T4, and B maybe at time T5. But still, because we don't have any further measurement, node B and D continuously sends the data packet, and you could see there is a pure collision at this time. Whatever is sent at this time is of waste. You have wasted the bandwidth, you have wasted the energy of the nodes, because for transmitting a data you need to spend the energy. Okay, in joules, it's measured in joules. All right, so this all wasted, right? So this is what happening in carrier sense multiple access if you don't detect and react to the collision. Right, now you guessed it rightly. The next one is carrier sense multiple access with collision detection. Right, yes. So you have got carrier sense multiple access with collision detection, right? We understood the necessity of collision detection. Now let's read the point. You don't need any, you will not have any difficulty in understanding these statements. If the adapter senses that the channel is ideal, it starts to transmit the frame. Perfect. Sense the carrier, nothing is On transmission, start sending itself. First point. Second one, else. What is that else? It senses the carrier, but the channel is not ideal. Okay, there is something happening. Some is happening. What's happening? Somebody else is transmitting the data. So how should you respond? You have to wait until it senses no signal energy and then starts to transmit the frame. So you have to wait till you see there is no transmission. Somebody else is not transmitting. Okay, it's not over. Let's see. While transmitting, the adapter monitors. Okay, this is the improvement from the CSMA in CD, CSMA CD. During transmission, if the adapter monitors the presence of signal energy, okay, it understands that somebody else is also transmitting from other adapters because it's a broadcast channel. Somebody else also is transmitting. If the adapter transmits the entire frame without detecting the signal, okay, now it has not only sending the signal but also senses the carrier. All your data is sent, then the adapter is finished with the frame, no problem. But if you are in the middle, okay, you haven't completed transmitting, but during the transmission you are also monitoring, and you suddenly if you see that somebody else is also transmitting, you have to abort the transmission. Okay, that's the second point which we had discussed. First one, listen before speaking. Second one, once you start speaking, if somebody else also is speaking, you better stop. That's the second one, right? So that's what happening here. If you see somebody else also has the data to transmit, you are supposed to stop your transmission, right? After aborting, okay, you have aborted because you sensed that somebody else also is transmitting. You are aborting your operation. What will you do? Is it all over? No, you have the data to send. What will you do? You have to wait a random amount of time. Same story. We have spoken about random amount of time in Aloha, right? Wait for the random amount of time and then it goes to step one. Go back, sends the carrier once again if there is any signal energy. If there is no signal energy, send it. If there is a energy, wait. But after you have transmitted, somebody else is also transmitting, abort it. Then wait for random amount of time, sends it. So this circle is happening in the case of CSMA CD. Does it have any effect on it? Yeah. Whatever is happening till T1 is very similar to the explanation which we had. Station B, station D, they are all sending. But after certain time, where is it sending? After the T1 also has sent the packet. Now it understand there is a collision. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. The node D is detecting the collision only at this time because it is sensing the carrier. The collision happens at this time. Okay. So once the collision happens, then node D stops its transmission. Similarly, node B also understands its collision and it stops its transmission. Now you could save the signals here. Okay, you are not going to continue transmitting. You are going to abort so that others, if they are sensing the carrier, they can use the space, the bandwidth. Okay, so this is what happening in carrier sense multiple access with collision detection. Okay, there is another variation, carrier sense multiple access with collision avoidance. We say CSMA CA. Okay, what happens in collision avoidance? In collision avoidance, it is normally for the wireless network. So may I request you to read by yourself. That is not part of our syllabus anyway, not in our textbook also. But I would recommend you to read about carrier sense multiple access with collision avoidance. That is generally for the wireless medium. Okay, so how the collision is avoided in wireless medium, that's an interesting thing for you to learn. Okay, now the question is, why should we have the random waiting time? I already answered you. If more than one node has the same amount of time as the waiting time, then there is a possibility of collision again. Okay, so you have to wait for a random amount of time. Okay, so what is that random amount actually is the question. Okay, is it large amount? Okay, if you're waiting for a large amount, then if there are 10 nodes, all the 10 nodes are waiting for a large amount, the bandwidth is wasted. Okay. If it is small amount, is it having any advantage? If it is small amount, again there may be a collision quickly because they sense the carrier very very quickly. Then there is no advantage of random amount of time. So we have got a very famous binary exponential backoff timer. Okay, so this binary exponential backoff timer helps you to set the random amount of time. Okay, so I read for you. When transmitting a frame that has already experienced n collision, you got a frame, sir. You have already transmitted first time collision, second time collision, 10th time again collision. Okay, and you have sent for n times. Okay, all the n times there is a collision. Okay, if there is a frame which has already experienced n times collision, a node chooses a value k, a random value k, okay, from a number 0 to 2 power n minus 1. Okay, if there are 10 times collision, it's going to be 2 power 10 minus 1, 2 power 9. So this much amount of time, okay, a wide range. So you take a random amount, it could be 0, it could be 2 power n minus 1 as well. Okay, so you got a variety of time slots, could be 10, could be 45, could be 2 power 8 or 7 or 6 if there are 10 packets got the collision. Now the more collisions experienced by a frame, the larger interval for which k is chosen. Okay, not 0 or 1 or 2. If the n has faced if the frame has faced multiple times collision, then the space to choose the random amount of time increases. So there is a chance that you will choose some bigger number also as a backup timer. If only one time, okay, you try it immediately. Often it happens, you increase your backup time. That's the logic. Okay, it's not guaranteed that you will always choose bigger, and also there is no guarantee that you will always choose the smaller one. Okay, there is, it's going to be a combination, which is a good practice. Otherwise you cannot set an amount of backup waiting time. Okay, so binary exponential backup timer is a better measure, which is not only used in the CSMA protocols, but in many of the algorithms which is used, especially in layer 2. There are multiple literatures, research papers are available. You can read them about that as well. Who knows, it will help you in future to develop any system or algorithm as well. Okay, the third class of protocols is taking turns protocol. Okay, what are the things which are happening in taking turns protocol? The problem with whatever we have spoken so far is there is a requirement of coordination. Okay, people should be able to sync with others on the timing and other things. Is it possible? That is little bit difficult to achieve. Okay, then we are having somebody in the middle in the case of token taking turns protocol. That's the third class of protocols. The first one is polling. Do I have the explanation? Yeah, the first one is the polling protocol, the second one is token passing protocol. Okay, the points are very clear. What happens in the case of polling? A person who is sitting in the middle, okay, he permits the people, the nodes, to send the frames. Very simple. Now it says node 1 send the frame, so node 1 will send the frame. Node 2 use send the frame, okay, node 2 will send the frame. Okay, one of the nodes is designated as the master node. Okay, and he polls each of the nodes in a round robin fashion. It could be round robin, it could be weighted round robin. If there are 10 nodes, it gives opportunity to all the 10 nodes, including itself. It gives opportunity for sending the frames. You have the frame to send it. No, you send it, you send it, you send it. So there is a management from the central person who is called as the master node, and he is sending in a round robin fashion. Okay, does it have any drawback? Yes, sir, there is a drawback. One is polling delay, because you have to communicate someone that you have the data, you send it, then he will start sending it. After that, you have to stop him, then the next person. So there is a communication requirement. It also takes up the bandwidth. This is the reason that you will not be able to achieve, none of the nodes in the polling protocol will be able to use the bandwidth of R, because the poller also takes a little bit of bandwidth for its transmission. Okay. The second drawback, as you all can understand, it is single point of failure. What happens if suddenly the polling machine or the master node fails due to battery issue, due to any other issue? If he fails, okay, so there is a single point of failure. So these are all polling protocols. Its point, though it is trying to support one of our assumptions, but it also has got a severe drawback, especially the second one is more severe, right? So a small variation is in that is the token passing protocol. So what happens in token passing? Very simple, sir. Do you have a ticket to watch the movie? Get in. If you don't have the ticket, you cannot, right? Sometimes back, some 3-4 months back, we all had e-pass mechanism, right? Still, it is implemented in some of the cases, some of the areas. All right. So e-pass mechanism. If you have the pass, you are permitted to go. If you don't have the pass, you are not permitted to go. Similarly, every of the node is having something called token. Okay. So whoever is possessing the token is permitted to travel. Others cannot. I'm sorry. Permitted to transfer the frame. Others cannot. Right. So now in this case, assume that node A has got the token in its hand. It's a small piece of software, okay, which authorizes the person to send the frame. That's it. Okay. If you have the token with you, then you are permitted to transmit the packet. All right. If you don't have the token, you can't transmit the frame. Simple logic, right? So node A has got the token. So till it holds the token, it transmits. And now the question is, so how long the token, the person who is the node who is having the token can transmit. There is something called token holding time, which is again, such complications are not shown in your textbook. So interested readers can Google and refer other materials also to know more about it. Okay. So the token holding time, I have just mentioned it because that is important for you. You should not forget it. So every token has a expiration time, token expiration time. Okay. So till that time they can hold the token. Once the token has expired, he has to forward the token to the next person. Okay. It is like 10 people are sitting in a circle, very similar to this. Okay. In this topology which is shown on the screen, four nodes are connected in a circular fashion. Okay. And right. So these nodes, after A has completed transmission, or the token which it is holding has expired, then the A has to forward the token to the next node. Maybe, for example, it can send it to B, and then it has to send it to C, and so on. So this token has to pass, right? And normally this token has to be passed in a specific direction. You cannot send it in omnidirection. You have to send it in a unidirection. For instance, if you go for anti-clockwise, you have to send it in anti-clockwise. That is CDBA, CDBA. If it is clockwise, then the other way, ABCD, ABC, ABDC, ABDC, and so on here. All right. And sometimes in some of the implementation, the rings are given two. Okay. In other words, there's a backup ring also is given. If one ring fails, suddenly the other link will be up, and then the packet will be transmitted. So the link could be bidirectional or it could be unidirectional as well, right? So there are major versions available, multiple tokens, just as a backup. Suddenly a token fails and so on, right? So this is about token ring, token passing protocol. And now? Do you think this is a successful one? This also has the drawback of single point of failure. How can this experience a single point of failure? What will happen? Suddenly the token fails, the token is lost, because anything can happen in the transmission, right? So the token is passed from one node to other node. Suddenly the token is lost due to network issue. Yep. So there is single point of everybody will be waiting for the token, but the token is not alive. Token is lost somewhere. Single point of failure. Other thing could be, assume that node A is in the transmission. It has completed the transmission and it has passed the token to node C. Okay. After the node C has received the token, node C is dead. Okay, there is a power failure or somebody has removed the cable XYZ. The node C is are not available. What will happen to the token? It has taken the token, it is dead. Now the node is not available, the token is not available. Alright, this is all happening. Okay, so there are a lot of interesting mechanisms available, especially in IEEE 802.5, which is the data link layer uh, um, standard for token ring, IEEE standard for token ring, IEEE 802.5. All right. So token ring is the best example for token passing protocol, where the devices are connected in a ring format, and there are some interesting phenomena also are happening. Right. So you have got your Ethernet IEEE 802.3, token ring IEEE 802.5. Then Wi-Fi, especially the wireless network, IEEE 802.11. There are variations also, IMHG and so on, right? So it's my appeal that you will read about all these IEEE standards as well, because you have got your RFCs also. IETF have released lot of RFCs for these standards as well. Please read them. They are all available as an open document. That will give you more light into what's happening in this data link layer protocols, right? That's it. So in a summary, what have we learned in the multiple access protocol? So we have got taking turns protocols, we have got random access protocol, then the first set of protocol, that is division multiple access set of protocol. Then you have got your Aloha, slotted Aloha, carrier sense multiple access,